Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Louder Lessons, and today in this video we are going to learn about ECMAScript 6. So let's get started. What is ECMAScript? ECMAScript is JavaScript language specification. That means ECMAScript provides all the standard features which are going to be supported by a JavaScript version. Alright. ECMA stands for European Computer Manufacturers Association, and they are basically a group of people who together decide what are the standard features which should be implemented by JavaScript or which should go into the JavaScript. Alright. So why do we need this standardization process into the JavaScript? So for that we need to go down into the history, and we can see that JavaScript was launched by Netscape team in 1995, and soon it was adopted by Microsoft as JavaScript. With different versions of the language, soon there arises a need of a standard version of the language, because otherwise it can be very confusing for the developers and for the different browsers to implement all these features. Alright, so ECMA Foundation came up and they started to build these standard set of features that are going to go into the JavaScript languages. Alright, let's see the history of ECMAScript. Soon after its foundation, ECMAScript 1 version language spec was released in 1997. After that, ECMAScript 2 was released in 1998, and after that ECMAScript 3 was released in 1999. And after that ECMAScript 4 was not released, and in 2009 ECMAScript 5, the major version of ECMA the script language spec was released, and it provided all the important features like functions and everything. And after that, the next major version of language specification was released in 2015. That was ECMAScript 6. And again, after 2015, the next major version was released in 2020, and instead of calling the versions by the number, after that we started to basically call them as ECMAScript, and then we will use the name of the year along with the language spec, because after that every year a new language spec is released. Alright, so that is all about ECMAScript's history, and there are a few things that you should already know in order to follow along with me in this course, and those things are a little bit of HTML, a few of the basics of CSS, and then the basic concepts of JavaScript like variables, strings, keywords, etc., functions, arrays, etc. If you have all these basic things, the information, the knowledge of all these things, then you can follow along. Otherwise you should go ahead and learn the basics of HTML, CSS and JavaScript before moving ahead in this course. Alright, the first concept that we are going to learn today is the let keyword. So before the ES6 came into play, in the earlier versions of JavaScript, we used var keyword to declare variables. Alright, so here I have opened an online JavaScript editor. You can use any other editor if you like Sublime Text or Visual Studio Code. The process will be same. So what I'm going to do is, let's declare a variable called x, and I'm going to assign the value of JavaScript to it. And then we are going to create a block, an if block, wherein we are going to create another x variable, and we are going to assign ECMAScript value to it. Alright, and we hope that this local variable is not going to override the value of my global variable. Right, so let's print these values. Let's call this one as block x, and other one we will call it as globals. Alright, let's try and run this code and see what happens. Now we can see that block level and global level both values are assigned to be ECMAScript. Alright, that means our local variable has overridden the value of my global variable. This can lead to multiple issues. Let's say if we are having a long JavaScript file with thousands of lines of code, and by mistake if somebody reuses a variable and assigns it some value, the global value of that variable is going to change, right? Which can lead to unintended consequences. Unfortunately, with earlier versions of JavaScript, we had to deal with this and there was no solution to that. But in ES6, the let keyword provides a solution to this. So let's change this var into let and let's see what happens. Alright, so we have changed these values, and if we run this code now, we can see that the global value is JavaScript and the block level value is ECMAScript. That means let keyword by default supports the block level scoping. Alright, now let's learn about the const keyword. So the const keyword is used to declare the constant values. Alright, so if I declare a constant name with name Alex, and later on if I try to change this value, its value to Bob, let's try and run this code, and we can see that we are getting a type error saying assignment to a constant variable. So this error tells us that we cannot change the value of a constant variable. In earlier version of JavaScript, there was no such keyword and there was no such identifier which can tell us that these values are constants and these are not. Unfortunately, with var, everything that we declared, we could have changed their values. But in ES6, let and const keywords were launched, and using let keyword we can initialize our variables, and using const keyword we can initialize our constants. So this is about let and const keywords. The next concept that we are going to learn about is template strings. Alright, so let's log a simple value called my name is Alex. Okay, so this is how we create a string in normal JavaScript. And if we have to use some variable, let's say we call this, we declare a name variable and we assign Alex to the name variable. So if we want to use this variable, what we can do is we can use this comma and then call name, and let's run this code and see what happens. My name is Alex is printed. Alright, we could also use plus statement instead of comma. What happens is that if we use plus, it does not provide a space, and so is Alex comes together. So what we can do is we can provide additional space in the string, and then we can use the plus statement and the result will be same. Alright, the ES6 came up with the template strings, which is another elegant way to declare such strings. And here what we can do is, instead of writing logging these strings like the above format, what we are going to do is we can use this backtick. Okay, backtick is a key that is available on the top left section of your keyboard, and we can use the backtick and we can then type a string as it is. And instead of using that variable with plus or comma, what we can do is we can assign this dollar keyword, and then we can use curly braces, and in the curly braces we can use this variable, and now we can see that the result is same. Alright, one more thing, this template string also support multi-line multi-line comments, and they all multi-line strings, and they also respect indentation. So if I put a tab and let's say I write another string saying that I live in India, let's print this, and we can see that my name is Alex and I live in India with a tab is printed. So this is how we can use template strings in order to basically write our strings in a better way and elegant way. Alright, now we are going to learn about a few new methods which are defined in the new version of JavaScript. These are few utility methods which can make our life easy. So what we are going to do is we are going to declare a variable. Let's say we are going to declare a variable named fruit. Okay, and the name of the fruit is banana. Okay, now what we can do is we can try to find out if fruit dot starts with, and here we can say pan. If we try and run this, it returns true, and it is case sensitive. So in order to see that, I am replacing capital B with a small b, and let's see what it returns. It returns false. Alright, let's say if just to test it once more, instead of ban we are searching for bab, and let's see, it should return false. That's correct. So that is starts with. Another utility function that is available to us is ends with. So let's check that as well. Ends with na, it should return true. That's correct. Let's test it again, and it should not end with nan, so it should return false. So it returned false. Alright, another utility method that is provided to us is includes. So includes searches for any substring that is available in this particular string. It can look for any substring sequence, or we can also look for the complete sequence. So if we try to look for banana, let's see what it returns. It returns false because this function is also case sensitive. So if we try and look for capital B banana, it returns true. And we can also look for Anna. Let's run this, and it should return true. So these are few of the string based utility functions that we can use to make our life easy with JavaScript ES6. Alright, okay, let's move to the next concept. The next concept that we are going to learn about is spread operator. So spread operator is a new operator in JavaScript which is represented by 3 dots. Alright, 3 dots. So what we can do using spread operator is, let's say we have an array called fruits, and this array contains apple and banana. Now what we can do is, if we want to add a new value into the fruits array, what we can do is fruits dot push orange, right? What it will do is it will edit this existing array. So if we log this value, we will be able to see that the fruits array is apple, banana and orange, right? Now let's say what happens if we declare another variable called fruits2, and what we'll do is we'll use spread operator, we'll call fruits inside it, and then along with this we are going to add another entry, that is grapes. Okay, now let's print the existing array and the new array as well. So we'll print fruits and then we will print fruits2. Okay, now let's run this code and see what gets printed. Okay, there was an error, we have to print fruits2. Okay, let's run this code again. Now we can see that fruits array contains, so although we added grapes to my fruits array and we returned it to fruits2, we can see that my fruits array contains apple, banana, orange, and my fruits2 array contains apple, banana, orange, and grapes, right? So what has happened here is, if I use a spread operator, what I get is a copy of my current variable that I have passed to the spread operator, and along with that, if I want to add some new values, I can do that. So when I call this statement, let fruits2 equals to spread operator fruits comma grapes, what it does is it create a copy of fruits array and then adds a new variable grapes, a new value grapes to that array, and then it returns that value into my fruits2. Alright, so if we print that, we can see apple, banana, orange, and grapes. But instead of that, let's say what if we had done something like let's fruit new equal to fruits, and what if we fruit new dot push kiwi, and let's say now if we print console.log fruit new. Okay, let's comment out this and let's run this code. Now we can see that if we assign the fruits variable to fruit new and then we push a new value kiwi into the fruit new, we can see that this fruit new variable, whatever we change into this, my original fruits array also gets changed. So here in this case, it is just creating a reference to my existing array and it is not creating a separate copy of this array. But when we use spread operator, we are actually creating a new copy and then we are making modifications into that copy. So that is the use of spread operators. And we have till now we have used this spread operator with arrays, but we can do so with objects as well. For example, let's say we create an object called point which contains x and y points. Okay, and we can have another point 3D, and what we can do here is we can assign it value of point and then we can assign a new value z to this point 3D. Alright, now if we print these values of point and point 3D, we can clearly see that point 3D, and if we print them, we can see that the point contains x and y values and point 3D contains x, y and z values. And here if we make any changes to my point 3D, those changes will not be reflected in my point object. So let's say instead of just adding this z value, we are also changing the value of x to 1. And now if we run it, we can see that my existing value of x in the point object remains 0 and in the point 3D object it becomes 1. So with this example we can be sure that it is making an exact copy of my existing object and then making modifications into that copy. So this is all about spread operators. Now the next concept that we are going to learn is destructuring. Okay, destructuring. Alright, so what is destructuring? In our last example we saw an array of fruits, right? Apple, banana and orange. Okay, so the normal way to access these variables will be using these indexes. Okay, so if we want to have the first value, we want to print the first value, we'll call fruits 0, right? If we want to print the second value, we'll print fruits 1, right? But if we want to print multiple values, we'll have to declare fruits 1 and fruits 2. In destructuring, we can have an elegant way of accessing these variables without calling these indexes. So what I can do is I can call these variables like this in angle brackets and assign the value of fruits to it. And now if I log the value of apple comma banana, then we can clearly see that apple contains the apple's value and banana contains the banana's value, right? Similarly, if we want to do the same experiment with, there is one more point left to explain. So let's say instead of apple and banana, if we want to access the value of apple and orange, so if we change this value of banana to orange and then print the orange here, what we can see is it is still printing apple and banana. This is because in destructuring of arrays, the values are accessed on the basis of their indexes. So the first index becomes apple and the second index is banana, so the banana gets stored in this orange variable. So what can we do to fix this? In order to fix this, what we'll have to do is we'll have to put another comma. And now the first value is apple, the second value is banana, which is not stored into any variable because we have not provided anything, and then the third value is orange variable and it gets stored into the orange. If I try to run this code, now the correct values will be printed, which is apple and orange. Now let's experiment the same destructuring concept with the objects. So let's go to the same example of points. So x is 0 and y coordinate is 0. Alright, so in order to access x and y, normal way to access these values will be point dot x comma point dot y, correct? Let's try and run this and we can see that 0 and 0 are printed, right? But we can destructure these values like this. So we have to use curly brackets and then x comma y equals to point. And now if we print the values of x and y, instead of point x point y, point dot x, point dot y, we can directly access the values of x and y. If we print this, we can still see x and y are 0. Alright, so this is the concept of destructuring. We can have nested destructuring as well. So if we had like complex objects wherein there are objects assigned inside objects, we could have destructured them as well. So destructuring is a powerful concept. Alright, let's move to the next concept, which is called arrow functions. Okay, so in earlier versions of JavaScript, the way to declare functions was, let's say we call where sum equals to function, and let's call it sum a comma b, and we will return a plus b. If we do this and we try and log this sum function, we call this sum function with value of 1 and 2, we can clearly see that this function returns us, oops, sorry, there is a syntactical error. Let's run this again, and we can see the value is 3, which is correct. Okay, so now we can, in ES6, we can declare this function in another elegant way, in which we can remove this function parameter and we can add this arrow symbol after the parameters declaration. And if we run this code, we can see the same 3 is getting printed. Also, if the body of the function contains just a single statement, what we can do is we can also remove these brackets. Okay, and we could also remove this return statement, and now my function becomes just a single line function, and still if I call it, I get the same result, which is 3. So arrow functions are an elegant way to write these functions. So this helps in making our code look a little bit prettier and simpler. Alright, so this is arrow functions, and please make a note, if there is just a single variable in an arrow function, let's say where double, we are declaring a function called double, and in this function if we pass any value, let's say x, what it does is it doubles this value. Alright, so if we print double of 1, we can see that it returns 2. Alright, but when we are having a single parameter, what we can do is we can also remove these brackets, and my function will still give me the same value, which is 2. Alright, but if we had no parameters at all, then it's mandatory to use these brackets. So let's say if I assign it constant, and now if I call this double without any values, it is going to return me 4. Alright, so this is arrow functions. Alright, apart from the syntactical sugar, there is a small difference in my legacy function syntax and my arrow functions regarding our this keyword. Okay, so if I declare a function const test function, if I declare an object which is my test object and name, the value of name is going to be Martin, and then we are going to have last name. Let's assign it to Luther. Okay, and then we are going to have a function called getFullName. What this function does is console.log let's print this literal. My full name is this dot name space this dot last name. Okay, let's run this code and let's see what happens. Okay, and now it does not print anything because we have not logged anything. Console. So let's call this function test.getFullName. Okay, let's run this. My full name is Martin Luther. Okay, so now these values are printed correctly. Okay, so let's see if we have another value which is fruits again. Alright, and this fruit contains apple and banana, and we have this another function called getFruits. Alright, and this function, what it does is it returns the strings telling us which fruits are there which I like. Okay, so let's declare this function and we should log this literal name likes fruit. Okay, now let's call this second function test.getFruits. Let's see what happens. Sorry, we should be calling this dot name and yeah, fruit. Let's run this again. We can see undefined instead of name, which is Martin, it is printing undefined. Why is that? Because it is not getting the correct value of this in name. What we can do is, in order to fix this, what we could have done is we could have used workarounds like declaring something like underscore this and then assign this value to it, and then if we use instead of this we use underscore this, we can get the value of Martin. But this is not a good way to do it, right? So a better way to do it would be using arrow functions. So instead of writing it like that, if we use arrow functions here and if we remove this underscore here, and now if we print this same function, we can see that correct value of Martin is getting picked. So when we use arrow functions, the correct value of this is picked from my block scopes as well. That is another useful case of arrow functions. Alright, Now the next concept that we are going to learn is about default parameters in the functions. Okay, so let's declare a function called getPoint, and what this function does is it returns us a point object. Alright, so let's say this function takes x comma y and it returns us an object saying x and y comma y. Okay, and if we log, now if we log get point 0 comma 0, we can see that we get a value of x and y 0. Alright, let's say if we do not provide these x and y values to this function, what are we going to get then? Let's try and see. We get x equals to undefined and y is also undefined. So if we want to have a default value for these x and y variables, the earlier way to do this would have been x. If x, actually if not x, that means if x is not defined, then x equals to 0. Similarly, if not x, if not y, then y equals to 0. And if we print this same function again, we can see the x and y values are 0 by default. Or we could have done this as well. This is a short syntax, x equals to x or 0 and y equals to y or 0. If we run this same code again, we can see x and y default values are 0. But in ES6 we have another feature that we called as default parameters, wherein we can define these default values using this syntax in my function's parameter itself. And now if I run this function, I am going to get the same value of x equals to 0 and y equals to 0. If I change this default value to 1, I am always going to get x equals to 1 and y equals to 0 if I do not pass any value of x and y to this function. So this is a new feature of default parameters into a function. Alright, another important feature is object enhancement. Object enhancement is what? So we can see here in this line we are declaring the x and the key is x and the value is also x. Similarly, key is y and value is also y. So it looks a bit of redundant to declare these two values when they are same twice, right? So in ES6, if we remove these two values and we write them like this only, x and y, because x key and value is same, declared by the same variable x, and similarly for the variable y, the key and value both are equals to y only. So if we remove those columns and the double assignment of the values and we just write x and y, still it is going to give us the same result. So this is called as object enhancement. Another important concept in ES6 is a generator function. So what is a generator function? So if we declare a function and put an asterisk after it, and we can call the name of the function and we can then declare its body. So this is how to declare a generator function. And what happens in generator function is that I can call the yield statement and I can stop the execution of the function as many times as I want using this yield function, and the execution gets paused. Alright, so let's see how we can call this function. let's declare a variable called call, and this variable is going to call the start count function. Alright, now what we can do is we can call the next on this call variable. This is how we can get the value of a generator function. If we try this, we are going to get the value of 1 and done equals to false. Let's try this again and let's print this one more time and see what happens. If we print it another time, we get the value of 2 and done equals to false. Now let's print it another time and let's see what happens. Now we get value undefined and done equals to true. So we can see that clearly that calling this function, the next on this generator function, is going to return the value, and then it is going to return us a done parameter, which is going to be true only when all the values we have declared using the yield statement are exhausted. So this is how we can use a generator function. Alright, the next important concept that we are going to learn about ES6 is classes. So classes are a way using which we can reuse our code, right? So we can declare a class using this class keyword, then the name of the class, and then we can call a constructor constructor. Alright, so this person class can have name, age. Alright, this start name equals to name, start age equals to age. Alright, get details, we can declare a function called get details, and it will return my name is start name and I am years old. Alright, so now what we can do is we can create multiple person const. Let's name the first person as Alex. New person, we can pass name as Alex and age as 22. Alright, let's create another person called Bob. Person, age 32. Now let's log these people. So first we are going to log Alex, and then we are going to log Bob, and let's see what gets printed. So we can see person name Alex, age 22, person name Bob, age 32 got printed. So this is how we can create classes, and then we can declare multiple functions into these classes, and we can declare the properties of these classes. Alright, we can also extend a class. So let's say we can create another class called officer, which extends person. Alright, and because we can have, so whenever we are extending this constructor, whenever we are extending a class, we have to call the super constructor of this class. So let's say this officer has name, age along with office name. So we can call super with name, age, and then we can assign this dot office name equals to office name. Alright. So now if I create another person, Martin, we are going to declare this as officer. Okay, and here we can define name as Martin, age can be 30, and office name can be Marty. And let's log Martin as well, and let's see what gets printed. So we can see that person name is Alex is there, person name Bob is there, then officer Martin is there, and Martin has name, age, and office name. So yeah, that's it. That's about classes in ES6. So this ends our video of ES6 concepts and features. Let's see you in the next video. Till then, happy learning. If you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe my channel so that you do not miss any of the video updates from my channel, and I'll keep coming up with new and interesting content for you. Thanks for watching.